I think the most important part of explaining to any student, but even a middle schooler, about who the dangerous person is online is they have created the person you want them to be, but you have to truly understand exactly who they are. And the only way you can do that is if you have met them in another real world situation and have invited them in. But if you have not seen them or met them in a real life situation, they have to assume it's a stranger. And with every stranger, there is danger that's attached to it.
You're listening to the smartsocial.com podcast. This is our District Talk segment where we interview district leaders to learn how they're keeping students safe on social media. And we also ask them questions that we get from parents all over the country in our program. Now, let's get back to the interview.
Hi, my name is Debbie Brockett. I'm the superintendent of McMinnville School District, located in Yamhill County, just northeast of Portland, Oregon. I have about 6,300 students spread across 9 different campuses in my community.
Superintendent, it's so great to have you here today. Welcome to all of our viewers, whether you're a parent, a superintendent watching, or anyone in between. Smart Social loves you, and we are here for one reason, to keep your kids safe on social media when they're on these devices. For those of you listening, I'm holding up an iPhone, but your kids might be on an iPad. They might be borrowing your phone from time to time. You might have an Android. Our goal is to keep kids safe so they can become successful in school and someday shine online for their future. What does that mean? That means at the age of 16 and above that they're starting to look at how mom and dad are branding themselves online. And that means if they have a phone in middle school, we decouple the conversation of when you get a phone versus when you get on social media. That is a little cheat sheet for you. Boy, do we have a great episode in store for you here today. Superintendent, I'm so honored to have you here. Now, Superintendent, one of the bigger questions that we have from parents that I'd love to get your insight on is how can schools and families work together to create a balanced approach to technology use?
I think when we work together, we have to understand when technology is appropriate for use. So working together to understand that while in school, we're there to learn, we're there to engage with our peers, communicate with our peers and our teachers, and limiting use within the school building becomes very important for the whole learning process. And then work together to understand what is appropriate use within home too. And I think it's part of the school's responsibility to help parents understand how much time is appropriate for phone use or computer use once we walk outside the school building.
Yeah, how much time is appropriate? What a good key takeaway. And that gets into kind of having a rich dialogue, right, with the kids. And also kind of an internal audit. Is our family doing too much or too little online? The next question that we have for you is, are there any ways to address potential harms while leveraging its benefits to support students' well-being and future readiness?
Yes, I think we can definitely leverage the potential harms while still using technology. So one thing our community is doing is engaging in a book study to just help parents understand how technology becomes harmful around the mental wellness of students when they're trying to engage, and how we can limit the time and ensure that students aren't going into sites or locations that just aid or even enhance that negative impact of how students are feeling, not only in school, but in their personal life as well. So I think having those conversations and really discussing how it's used, but we have to be careful that we understand that technology is part of our future. And if we're going to have students future ready, we have to teach our students now, our future for tomorrow, how to use technology appropriately so it can be very impactful in their future and in their life as a whole.
Yeah, I like how you've got this theme going of conversation. So we're having a conversation with kids. Let me ask a little insights into your community in Oregon. What is the first year that you're seeing a lot of students get a cell phone? If you don't mind giving us insights into your community.
Unfortunately, we're seeing it a lot more cell phone use as early as elementary level. And therefore, we don't allow any cell phones inside of our elementary schools. And then we see at middle school, it really heightened where it's abnormal not to have a cell phone at the middle school level. And then, of course, when you get to high school, I don't think you see a single student on campus very often without a cell phone in hand.
Yeah, so true. And to all the parents listening right now, again, there is no shame here from Smart Social, but totally fine to give that cell phone early. But there's a big discussion happening nationwide. Know that you have the power to say no social media until 16, but you can have a phone younger because mom or dad want to communicate with you. They want to have Find My Friends or Find My Location on there and be safe. Totally normal to have that nowadays. And we want to remind parents, you have the power to do that. Superintendent, is that reasonable? Set me straight. What are your thoughts? What was your advice to parents pushing social media a little later, but having good communication with kids using the tech now?
I do. I think it's important that kids do have access to cell phones a little bit younger if used appropriately. And it's interesting because back when I grew up, we used to have landlines and we would communicate with our friends and our family through these things called landlines. And many homes have pulled that out of their home in general. So without that use of some form of cell phone for appropriate, not social media, but to communicate, we start to lose the communication with our friends and our families that we so need. It's still important. Communication is very, very important for our students. And taking something away from a student or not allowing it doesn't provide the education we need to provide to students. We need to teach them appropriate use. So if we are going to give them a cell phone at a younger age, teaching them what is appropriate and then limiting the access to what the phone can do. Because there are cell phones that will allow you to have that communication without having social media access, which I think is very important for families to know.
Yeah, absolutely. The next question that we get from parents, and this is a long one, as schools work to integrate artificial intelligence and AI, which is huge in the news this week, into the classroom responsibly, what specific steps do you believe educators and administrators can take today to ensure students learn to use these AI tools as a positive tool while mitigating potential negative impacts on their mental wellness?
I'm glad you asked this question. This is a huge passion of mine around AI and ensuring that our students learn how to use it ethically and appropriately within every setting of their life. I feel as educators, we failed somewhat in social media when we didn't take that ethical use education into our own hands. So I think some steps we can take to help mediate this is provide guidelines. And so developing district guidelines around appropriate use of AI, not only for our students, but for our teachers and our staff, and also for parents. So making sure when we develop these guidelines that we roll that out at all levels so that everybody using AI understands the potential harm it can cause, but at the same time, the amazing impact it can have on education and the power it is going to have in our future as we move forward into the next generation of learning.
Let's double click into that, Superintendent. Can you give me a specific example for our audience of where AI has helped a student? Maybe it was a teacher who helped better explain something by turning it into a song, or are there any lesson plans that were created, or maybe a student who used AI to better understand a subject? Any specific things that you could give us insight into in your community?
Yes, I think for our community, the most impact we're seeing with AI right now is just differentiating learning. We came back from the pandemic. Even before the pandemic, but more after the pandemic, we saw a lot of different learning needs. We saw students at all kinds of different levels. So what we see our teachers doing now is using AI to ensure that they're meeting the individual needs of each student within the same lesson while keeping the content the same, finding creative ways to not only educate the students on that topic, but creative ways to differentiate their teaching so they're meeting all of the different learning styles of the students within the classroom. So I've seen it very impactful. The other one I really liked is when they turned the AI into a communication device in which we watched a group of students communicate with a historical figure from the past and speak to AI as if they were that historical person in the past. I can't recall exactly who it was, but they were asking them questions from the 1700s and AI was engaging back with them on what it would be like to be back in the 1700s. So it was bringing real life conversation back many, many decades previously into the real world for our students. And it's really engaging for our students. And it just had a feeling that they were enjoying life and not just learning. So learning at a high level, but with true enjoyment as they were sitting there learning how to engage with somebody back from the 1700s.
Yeah, it's immersive. It's like a story. And one of our live events, we're about to get into a little excerpt from one of our live events. We teach AI. I used to, at a very young age, I worked at Disney Studios in brand marketing here in Los Angeles, where I started my career. And we teach people how to ask Walt Disney, what was your favorite ride at Disneyland? And all of a sudden he's answering. It's like, well, I liked this one, but this one came out right after I passed. But it was my favorite ride I was working on, and it would be my favorite ride. Pirates of the Caribbean is the one it typically answers with. But it's just fascinating to get inside of Walt Disney's head. What was he thinking? So interesting. So to all of our viewers and listeners right now, parents also ask us, this is a big question. Josh, what makes these apps so addictive? Let's hear from two teenagers as they explain why they can't stop scrolling on TikTok.
I think the most addictive part about social media is the constant new content that you see. You're always being introduced to new content, especially on apps like TikTok. I think the short videos, when they end so quick, you start to lose your ability to have a longer attention span. I've caught myself finding long TikTok videos and I can't stand watching the whole thing.
This generation really adapted to the fact that we don't have a large attention span. We really only concentrate for 30 seconds. So getting information that quickly, I think, enables us to just want to keep watching more. You don't even need to care about what they're presenting to you, but just the fact that you can sit there and watch it and you're oddly enjoying it. Social media is pretty addictive. People said it's like a drug. So it is addictive because you can't stop watching it. Your mind just plays on loop and it enjoys the fulfillment of everything firing in your brain. So just keep watching.
How fascinating is it for all of our viewers and listeners? These students are so attuned to how addictive this content is. My attention span went from 60 seconds down to 15. And this is another excerpt from one of our live events that we have every single week for all of you parents with partner school districts. Josh, is social media positive or negative for my kiddos? Great question. Let's hear from a student as to why they think these apps, again, are so addictive and both the positive and negatives in her life.
Part of what makes social media so addictive is how the algorithms are based on using content to judge whether or not someone's worthy and using people's short attention spans to evaluate them as pieces of code, which also means that social media doesn't really care about your opinion, but really what keeps you on that platform longer, whether that's from likes, comments, and engagement, sharing it to other people, or even just watching it through. The algorithm judges you as a piece of data and whether or not someone should be praised for being controversial or thrown away for not being exciting enough, even if they're pouring their heart and soul into the content. It is a heartless beast. When I spend too much time on social media, that can look like being happy because something really cool happened in my friend's life. They went hiking. A friend of mine saw snow for the first time a couple of days ago, and it can make me feel really happy and energized. But other times, it can just be really draining. It can be really negative. It depends who I'm following. It depends what's being posted.
So many little tidbits in there. And parents, if you liked what you saw, don't forget that if your district is a partner of ours, we have weekly live parent events and replays. Our research team creates 50 plus late breaking events with real teen-led video lessons that you just saw, but we have new teens every single week and premium parent newsletter and experts and so on. Principals, this is our dream for you. We want you to feel this way. Josh, before we met you, we had 50 social media incidents per year last year. Now, thanks to these live events, we're down to 5 incidents. I have more time to be a school principal again. Directors say the 50 plus live events give our community 10 times the engagement because they have a chance to join on their phone without software on a date and time that works with their schedule. And there's a replay. And as superintendents, this is what many of you are saying to us. The dashboard data that you're giving me gives me parent engagement data to share with my board and my district leadership team. And here's our secret sauce. Steal it, run with it. Basically, in January, we teach all month how to shine online. We have all these live events. In February is avoiding strangers and dangerous situations online. We shorten it to dangers. March is confident, resilient kids in a digital world. April is pros and cons of video games and how to make it fun as a family, but also cautious. May is the impact of screen time and motivation. Parents, get ready for the summer because it's 7 ways to ignite motivation, decreasing conflict with a family media plan. August is AI for student success, and so on. We keep going all year long and lots of pop-up little tiny bonus sessions backed by popular demand. So we got a lot going on for you. Superintendent, we're back to you. The next question I have for you is all about our February content, avoiding strangers and dangerous situations online. The question I have for you from parents is, what is your advice to parents and students to avoid talking to strangers and avoiding dangerous situations online?
My advice for avoiding strangers online is use your online access as if it's your front door. Every time you let somebody in, you've let a stranger in your front door. And if we remember that, if we wouldn't open the door to just any old stranger we don't know, then why would we open our social media or any online application to somebody we don't know?
I love that. I'm writing that down because I'm always learning from our superintendents. Your friend list is, I'm rephrasing this a little, is like your front door, right? Your home front door. I love that. It's how cautious. Do we look through the peephole and make sure we know who it is before we open the door?
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes,
Do we say, where
absolutely.
do I know you from somewhere? Love that. Hey, let me double click into that, superintendent. If you had to describe to a middle schooler, because a lot of kiddos these days are saying, that's my friend online on Fortnite. That's my friend. And you and I know that's not their friend. That's somebody they've been playing with online, but it could be somebody of a totally different age, a much older man chatting with a girl or whatever. Well, how would you describe to a student who a stranger is online versus a trusted adult you've met in real life? Do you have any insights for parents listening right now?
I think the most important part of explaining to any student, but even a middle schooler, about who the dangerous person is online is they have created the person you want them to be, but you have to truly understand exactly who they are. And the only way you can do that is if you have met them in another real world situation and have invited them in. But if you have not seen them or met them in a real life situation or in a safe, there are classrooms that share classroom conversations. But if they have not seen them physically in person or in a safe situation, then they have to assume it's a stranger. And with every stranger, there is danger that's attached to it.
I'm so sorry. I've never gone
What
down to
a
two rabbit holes, but they've
stranger
created
is.
the person you want them to be. I love that phrase. Are you referencing that the stranger is creating who they are so that the son or daughter then all of a sudden befriends them? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, absolutely. So as a stranger online, I can be anybody I want to be. I do not have to be the person you believe I am. And many times it's just through chat. You never even physically see the person as a live online person.
Yeah.
And I would be extra cautious if I was a parent, if my child was talking to someone who never showed up physically on the screen or in any other location, because that does mean that most likely they've created their own person. And that makes for a dangerous situation, not only online, but if it ever is to become a reality where that real person does show up.
100%. I think so many parents right now are resonating with you going, yes, what a great line for parents. Once again, that stranger created the person that your child wants them to be. Just so powerful. Superintendent, when it comes to video games, what's your advice to parents and teens about video game safety and also managing video game screen time?
My advice around video games is it can be an activity that children can engage in with the right amount of time. However, I would always encourage any parent to really push their children outside the door into the great outdoors. There is so much to be gained by interacting with real people outside the home, and also just to be outside, getting the fresh air and the mental wellness that's attached with being outside and socializing in person. So when it came to video games, if they invited a friend over and wanted to sit around and play for an hour, I'd be okay with that. But then I would want them to follow up with some outdoor time for another hour. So I would balance that very carefully, but always encourage them to play with people they know. Because once again, even online during video games, the stranger is not only many times trying to play games with them, they're also trying to get to know the most intimate secrets and information about students. And not everybody online is playing for the right intentions. So I would monitor that, and I would make sure that children knew and my child knew exactly who they were engaging with online. But even more, I would engage them to go outside and play real life games during the summertime.
Yeah, boy, those are some pro tips. I really enjoyed that. For all of our listeners here right now, remember keeping your kids safe so they can be successful in school and someday shine online is our goal here at smartsocial.com. Superintendent, thanks so much for joining us here today. We appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for doing this great work. It is so important for our students and our families.
Thank you. And for all of our listeners and all of our viewers, a little bit of a plug here. Remember, no matter what you're doing online, remember to keep it light, bright, and polite because your kids are watching. We'll see all of you on the next episode. Have a great rest of the day. I'm Josh Oakes, your host. Take care. Thanks for listening to the smartsocial.com podcast. Smart Social helps parents understand technology and social media to keep their kids safe and successful. Be sure to join one of our weekly online live events to become the smartest parent on the block so you can keep your kids safe and protect their future. Also, don't miss our 450 plus online resources and replays you can watch on demand in multiple languages. Are you a school district wanting to unlock these resources for your parents? Reach out to us so we can protect your whole community each week. Have a great rest of the day, and we'll see you on the next episode.